The day I was diagnosed as pregnant, Oliver's first love, Alice, had her third miscarriage and lost her ability to have children. She sent Oliver a final message, then turned on the gas and tried to kill herself. From that day on, Oliver hated me with all his heart. If you hadn't used your pregnancy to provoke Alice, she wouldn't have left me. Murderer, you don't deserve to live a good life. So he found every possible way to torment me, framed my entire family, and drove me to death from overwork. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Oliver proposed to me. This time, I looked at Alice standing not far away, holding her belly, and pulled her forward. Oliver, Alice is pregnant. You love her so much, surely you don't mind raising another man's kid, do you? Chapter 1. I was reborn on the day Oliver proposed. He stood surrounded by red roses and candles, staring at me, but even the lively atmosphere couldn't mask the impatience in his eyes. Dragged downstairs by my roommates, I couldn't even bother pretending anymore. I grabbed Alice from the crowd. Oliver's gaze turned icy as he stared me down. Helen, what the hell is your problem? I proposed just like you asked. What more do you want? I shook my head. You're only proposing because your family pressured you. But I don't want this. I've seen it for years. The one you really love is Alice. So, I'm stepping aside. Alice eyed me suspiciously. Oliver looked dumbfounded. When he came back to his senses, he grabbed my wrist tightly. There are so many people here. Are you really trying to humiliate me? Seriously, this guy couldn't tell good intentions from sarcasm. Suppressing my disgust, I gave him my most sincere expression and pushed Alice into his arms. You two are made for each other. I won't get in the way of true love. Oliver looked like he had something to say. I patted my chest, adding, don't worry, I'll talk to your parents and make sure they won't give you trouble. Everyone around us froze for a moment, then began cheering again when I clapped my hands. It was still a proposal, just with a different bride. What's the difference? But as the crowd scattered, Oliver finally noticed Alice's slightly swollen belly, and he completely lost it. He gently sat Alice down on a bench, then grabbed my arm and demanded, what nonsense are you spouting? There's no way Alice is pregnant. Of course. I wasn't going to tell him that in the previous life. Alice got pregnant near graduation. She even blamed her first miscarriage on me, said if she hadn't come to cheer for me at my competition, she wouldn't have lost the baby. Oliver was so furious. He had my scholarship for studying abroad revoked. So now, I casually lied. My mom has a friend who works in OBGYN. She happened to see Alice during a checkup. Oliver got angrier. So you knew she was pregnant and still, tonight, in front of everyone, you made me, He stumbled over his words. I looked at him in mock surprise. You love her so much. Remember that big dinner with both our families? You swore in front of over 100 people that you'd never marry anyone but her. What? Backing out now? I sneered. Oliver, some kind of true love you've got there. He was speechless, neck craning as if he wanted to argue. Behind him, Alice walked up cautiously, her hand resting on her belly. Don't fight anymore, she said softly. It's my fault. I trusted the wrong person and ended up like this. The doctor said my body's in bad shape. If I miscarry again, I might die. Oliver had always been a sucker for her teary, pitiful look. He immediately pulled her into his arms. Don't worry, Alice. I'll find that bastard for you. Alice's baby was from her ex-boyfriend, a foreign guy she met during study abroad. He disappeared recently. Alice gripped Oliver's sleeve tightly. Please don't look for him. I don't want him anymore. I smirked. So you can't hit him? Can't find him? What exactly do you want then? Alice stayed silent, burrowing deeper into Oliver's chest. I don't know. He took my money, my body, everything. All I have left are you two. I said nothing. Oliver clenched his teeth and blurted out, Alice, don't worry. We grew up together. I'll take responsibility for the baby. Perfect. That's exactly what I was waiting for. Chapter 2. Very few people knew about Alice's pregnancy. She requested an extended leave from school. Oliver rented a 3-bedroom apartment just for her to rest and recover. After sending Alice off, Oliver turned around and stopped me. His eyes were wide with suspicion. Why are you reacting like this? I flashed a professional fake smile. Seeing you and Alice overcome all odds to be together, I'm happy for you." Oliver looked even more irritated, clearly dissatisfied with my answer. In my previous life, our engagement had been arranged for the sake of our families. Meanwhile, Alice had married that mixed-race boyfriend she'd always dreamed of without hesitation. But after the wedding, her husband constantly brought mistresses home. Shattered, Alice suffered multiple miscarriages. When she lost her baby for the third time due to domestic violence, I had just found out I was pregnant. Out of concern for her, I didn't make a big deal out of it. I only told Oliver over the phone. But once his mother found out, word quickly reached Alice. To Alice, my pregnancy was the ultimate insult and cruelty. That same night, she texted Oliver, "I hope that in my next life, the one who stays with me until the end will be you." Then she turned on the gas in the kitchen. They didn't get to her in time. Oliver went insane. He caused a huge scene at the hospital, then came home and smashed everything in sight. He called me a murderer, said I'd pushed Alice too far, that I was the reason he'd lost the love of his life. After that, my father's company was targeted and crushed by his family's firm. And me? I was tormented for years. Remembering all this, I clenched my fists and didn't spare Oliver another glance. I turned and walked upstairs. This time, I'll make sure the two of them stay entangled, locked in a mess they can't escape. Let them ruin each other. It's the only justice for everything I suffered in my last life. That weekend, I had nothing planned. My dad invited me home for dinner. He said Oliver's family was coming over to discuss our arranged marriage. I told him there was no point. Oliver had already decided to take care of Alice for the rest of his life. Might as well say it to everyone's face and end it officially. We waited more than half an hour before Oliver showed up to the private dining room. Under the disappointed gaze of his parents, he declared loudly, "I promise to take care of Alice for life, and I won't go back on my word." His father clutched his chest and yelled, clearly unable to comprehend his son's decision. I smiled to myself. If they're already this worked up now, wait until they find out Oliver is about to become a stepdad. My dad cleared his throat. Well, in that case, let's call off the engagement. After all, the younger generation should have the final say. It could have ended right there. But halfway through the meal, Oliver got a call. He looked at his phone, scrolled through something, and then suddenly glared at me. "Helen, so this is your game? You haven't changed a bit, still the same manipulative witch." Right after that shout, Oliver stood up and splashed the red wine right into my face. Caught off guard, I choked and coughed uncontrollably. My dad was instantly furious. He grabbed Oliver and slapped him across the face. "You little bastard. I watched you grow up, and this is how you treat my daughter." Oliver's mother rushed over, shielding her precious son protectively. I calmly wiped my face with a tissue and stared coldly at Oliver. Breathing heavily, he leaned in, lowered his voice so only the two of us could hear, and growled each word. "I knew it. That fake blessing you gave me and Alice the other day? Total act. You're a venomous little snake, pretending to be all nice while leaking Alice's pregnancy to the world. So that's why he lost it." I let out a cold laugh. "Oliver, you don't even know the whole story. Who are you to judge me?" And then, I picked up the steaming bowl of fresh clam soup and slowly poured it over his head, like watering a withering plant. Oliver stumbled back. "Soaked. You're gonna regret this." He snarled. He shoved me aside, grabbed his coat, and stormed out. The wooden door slammed back with a loud bang, echoing through the room. An awkward silence filled the air. The other elders scrambled to smooth things over, while Oliver's mother muttered sarcastically, "Helen, really, your temper is just getting worse. What kind of decent girl pours soup over her future husband?" "Expressionless," I replied. "Seems like there's been a misunderstanding. We just said it clearly. Oliver's already pledged himself to Alice." She crossed her arms and kept going with her passive-aggressive commentary. "To be honest, I've met that Alice girl. She's great. If her family hadn't gone bankrupt back then, there's no way you'd be marrying into our family." My dad nearly exploded with rage and questioned her directly. I gently held his hand, then smiled and shot back. "Ma'am, is being your daughter-in-law some kind of golden ticket? If I'm really not good enough, then why do you call me 10 times a day begging me to keep an eye on your precious boy? Could it be, deep down, you know he's a piece of work?" Oliver's mom froze. stunned, silent, and rolling her eyes in frustration. In my past life, this same future mother-in-law had gone around announcing my pregnancy while bad-mouthing me in front of Alice. That's what led to the tragedy in the first place. But when Alice had her accident, she and her precious son Oliver turned around and blamed me, said I was shameless and cruel, that I didn't care about sisterhood, and that I had flaunted my pregnancy to the world. Later, after enduring repeated torment from Oliver and suffering a miscarriage, I lay in the hospital while she stormed in, called me useless, and dug her freshly manicured nails into my face until it bruised purple. Looking back now, it's easy to see, a household capable of raising a self-absorbed, narcissistic jerk like Oliver was never going to be a good place for me. Chapter 3. Oliver rushed back to campus by taxi that very night to comfort Alice. He barged into the girls' dormitory despite attempts to stop him. As I came upstairs, he was holding Alice tightly in his arms, his cold, menacing gaze sweeping across the crowd. If any of you dare say one more word about her, you're going against my family. Don't blame me for kicking you out of the school. How full of himself, he really thought the university belonged to his family. I held my sketchbook and pushed through the onlookers, heading back to the dorm. Everyone, relax. Just another nutcase throwing a tantrum. Not worth the crowd. The hallway went instantly quiet. My 3 roommates all gave me a synchronized thumbs up. Oliver's grip on Alice tightened, making her cry out softly in pain. What did you say? He stared at me, utterly shocked. On his way back to school, Oliver had already called me, fuming, threatening that if he got back and found even a strand of hair missing from his beloved Alice, he'd make me pay. I laughed on the spot. He snapped, "What? You think I'm bluffing? I'm telling you, if anything happens to Alice, I'll do whatever it takes." Of course, in the previous life, after Alice died tragically, he took revenge on me, set financial traps that crushed my family business. My father coughed up blood in the hospital, and Oliver forced him to kneel and beg for my forgiveness. He had completely forgotten the meals he ate at our house as a kid, forgotten how my father treated him like his own son. Oliver and I locked eyes. The tension was thick. Then Alice rushed forward and grabbed my wrist. "Helen, even if you're upset Oliver chose me, that doesn't mean you can spread lies." Enough was enough. I stepped away from her. "First of all, you know perfectly well whether the pregnancy is a lie. This tear-streaked act of yours only works on Oliver. Don't think the world will go easy on you just because you cry a little." My roommate Miranda applauded. "You're my hero." Other girls around began murmuring too. "Exactly. We all just saw that expose about her pregnancy and she's already crying like a victim." I went to get a package, accidentally brushed her shoulder, and she accused me of being Helen's spy trying to harm her. I couldn't defend myself at all. She acts like everyone's bullying her, but barely anyone pays attention to her. Alice's face turned ghost white, her body swayed, and she collapsed backward. Oliver caught her, glaring at me. "Helen, just because your dad's powerful doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. If you don't apologize to Alice tonight, don't even think about stepping into this dorm." Those words actually sparked a bit of excitement in me. I leaned in closer. "Oliver, you barged into a girl's dorm and threatened someone. If anyone needs to apologize, it's you. You've completely embarrassed whatever dignity your family has left." Oliver snapped, raising his hand to grab my head and force me to bow in apology. But I seized his wrist, twisted it down, and threw him hard to the ground. Lately, I hadn't just been practicing my sketching, I also picked up a bit of judo. "Your mom asked me to teach you a thing or two on campus. I'm just doing my duty." Alice, both shocked and frightened, scrambled to help a red-faced Oliver off the ground. The dorm supervisor came up wielding a broom to chase him out, and only then did Oliver leave, flinging off her hand. The next day, he used his connections to trace the IP address of the post about Alice's pregnancy. The whistleblower was Roma, who had been competing with Alice for a scholarship. When I went downstairs to throw out the trash, I happened to see Oliver holding Alice's waist, cornering Roma with a smug look on his face, demanding she kneel and apologize. Alice's eyes shimmered with satisfaction and pleasure, but she kept her act up, speaking meekly. "Let it go, Oliver. Roma didn't mean it. She hasn't been giving me trouble in the dorm lately. And besides, she's close to Helen. Doing this would be like slapping Helen in the face. I really don't want to stir up any more drama." As soon as she said that, Oliver's desire to protect her shot through the roof. I knew that spoiled Princess Helen would never give up on me. He leaned in, voice laced with threat. If Roma didn't kneel, he would release photos of her working as a hostess at a bar. That's always been Oliver's way, brutal and crude. They lived in the same dorm, and yet he never even considered helping Alice earn goodwill. Roma's body trembled at his words. Humiliated, she shouted. If Alice hadn't constantly snatched away my opportunities, would I have done that? Saying that, she pulled out the pencil stuck in her hair and lunged toward them. Don't hurt Alice. Oliver panicked and shielded Alice tightly in his arms. But as I had just come downstairs, he suddenly shoved me straight into Roma's path. The pencil slashed across my forearm, blood welling up. In Roma's shocked gaze, I calmly took the pencil from her. Go report yourself to the counselor. I won't press charges, for now. Roma turned to leave, but Alice screamed with wide eyes. She can't leave. Oliver, you saw it. Those two are in on it together. If I don't get justice today, I won't survive this. She was clearly trying to push Roma further over the edge, with Oliver protecting her, and me potentially becoming the next scapegoat for Roma's rage. Roma, finally composed, nodded at me and went to find the counselor. Oliver, checking Alice over with concern, finally noticed the blood on my arm. I'm sorry, Helen, he said, for once sounding remorseful. It all happened too fast, and Alice's condition is special, so I had to throw me in front to take the hit. I stared at him, filled with disgust. Did it ever occur to you, what if I hadn't reacted in time and she stabbed my eye? Oliver swallowed hard. It wouldn't have been that bad. Alice is an artist. Her hands can't get injured. The moment he said it, he had clearly forgotten. I've been studying painting since I was 7. I stepped closer, and Oliver, startled, instinctively pulled Alice behind him. Oliver, give me your hand. I have something for you. He frowned but held out his hand. I took the pencil and drew a sharp cut across his palm. Ah, are you insane? He cried out, Alice shrieking and hugging him. I smiled sweetly. Oliver, these 10+ years of friendship, and that little shove just now, consider them paid in full. I wish you and Alice a lifetime of misery together, never-ending and inseparable. As Oliver stared at me, his pupils trembling, I walked away effortlessly. Chapter 4. It wasn't long before Alice got summoned by the school for a meeting due to her prolonged absence. Her pregnancy could no longer be hidden. Initially, the school was going to expel her, but Oliver paid some money under the table and even promised to donate a library, barely managing to save her diploma. Still, as gossip around campus grew, Alice became increasingly sensitive. If she walked past a group whispering, she'd assume they were mocking her. Once, when a roommate forgot to say good morning, she accused her of intentionally isolating her. Meanwhile, I spent all my time in the art studio, fully focused on preparing for the upcoming National Ink Painting competition. The winner would be selected as an apprentice to a grandmaster of traditional painting and receive 6 months of personal instruction, something I had dreamed about for years. In my last life, I had spent half a year preparing and was full of confidence. But on the day of the competition, Alice suddenly suffered intense abdominal pain. Under the parasol tree, she clutched my arm and begged me not to abandon her. Even though I called an ambulance and got a teacher to help, she still went around telling people I left her to die. This time, I won't show her an ounce of kindness. Kindness toward the wrong people only brings disaster. I painted until the sun set before opening the door to head home. A tall, thin figure suddenly loomed over me at the entrance, startling me. Oliver, what are you doing here? I eyed him warily. I misjudged you last time. I came to apologize, he said while trying to force his way into my studio. No need. It won't be the last time you apologize anyway. His expression froze, like he was deeply hurt. Even if the engagement's off, you don't have to talk to me like this. And don't act like you're totally innocent. You knew Alice is pregnant and vulnerable, and yet as her friend, you didn't stay by her side. Helen, since when did you become so selfish? I looked disgusted. Don't drag me into your mess. If I stayed with her, how would you show off how noble and devoted you are? I didn't have time to waste. Move. You're in the way of me winning that award. Oliver grabbed my wrist hard. What's an award gonna earn you? I'll pay you $50,000, go to Lanyuan Apartments and take care of Alice full time. That competition you're chasing? It's just hype. You can join any time. I smiled as I flung off his hand. Oliver, you really should drain that water in your brain. On Monday, I arrived early at the competition venue. I drew number 9 in the lineup. The place was crowded, and just as I found my footing, a commotion erupted at the door. A contestant shouted angrily, "What's wrong with her? Bringing bodyguards to an art competition?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Alice walking in wearing a formal dress, surrounded by a wall of black-suited bodyguards holding hands. Oliver followed closely behind, carefully placing a cashmere shawl over her shoulders like she was some A-list celebrity. Then I remembered Alice had registered for this year's ink painting competition too. But seeing how she'd been lounging at home, posting glam pregnancy photos and being waited on hand and foot, I assumed she'd forgotten all about it. I went to the restroom, but as I reached for the door, I realized it had been locked from the outside. At first, I thought it was a prank, but when I finally climbed out with great effort, I caught a glimpse of a bodyguard in black sprinting away. Luckily, I wasn't too delayed. By the time I got to the exhibition area, Alice was already holding a microphone, explaining her creative process. Behind her, displayed proudly, was the piece I had just finished, Dawn. In any case, this painting is a reflection of the beautiful moments shared between me and the most important person in my life, Mr. Oliver. Our love is as radiant as this sunlight. I let out a cold laugh and cut the power to her display screen. You sure have a vivid imagination, speaking so eloquently about someone else's painting. Alice froze, glaring at me in resentment. She clearly hadn't expected me to still show up. Helen! Oliver pushed through the crowd, trying to pull me aside. If you have a problem, let's talk downstairs. Don't make a scene here. I locked his arm and pinned him to the floor. You shameless jerk. My painting becomes Alice's out of thin air, and you still dare talk to me like that? Now I understood why Oliver kept darting glances behind me when he came to the studio that day. You weren't here to apologize, you came to secretly photograph my work. Alice interrupted, speaking condescendingly. Helen, stop making things up. People will just think you're crazy. Oliver didn't hesitate. He signaled to the bodyguards to drag me out. Chapter 5. Amid the chaos, the renowned ink painting master, Professor Nestor, stepped onto the stage and cleared his throat. Silencing the room, he asked Alice directly if the painting Dawn was really hers. Alice couldn't wait to claim it as her own, but the professor only smiled and shook his head. Young lady, lacking in skill is forgivable. A flawed character is not. Alice's face went pale. What do you mean? But when she looked up and saw all my past works being displayed on the big screen, she was struck speechless. It was simple. Since I had already decided to pursue an apprenticeship under Professor Nestor, I'd been corresponding with him and mailing him one painting a month. Dawn, this competition piece, had been completed a week ago and uploaded to the official contest committee. The entire audience now turned their scornful eyes toward Alice. Blushing furiously, she clutched her belly and threw herself into Oliver's arms. Oliver. It turns out Helen always saw me as an enemy. She never trusted us. Oliver turned toward me, shame and anger on his face. You planned this, pretending to be cautious and noble, just to humiliate us. I sneered. You're the thieves. Yet somehow you're the ones offended? Your shamelessness knows no bounds. Oliver barked at the bodyguards to clear the room and snarled. Alice is pregnant. She can't handle stress. I just wanted to make her happy. And it's just a painting. No need to take it this far. Can't you just let it go? How dare the thief act like a martyr? Save your bandit logic. I couldn't hold back my rage anymore. Oliver. Just so Alice could win favor from a master. You were willing to sabotage my opportunity? Who gave you that right? And locking me in the restroom, did you approve that too? Oliver fell silent, eyes clouded with guilt. At my insistence, the organizers called the police. In the end, Oliver and Alice only paid a fine and were released. But Alice's social death video at the competition had already spread like wildfire. I joined other artists in publicly condemning this disgraceful act of plagiarism. Within days, Alice was being slammed online, forced to shut down her comments section. Late one night, Oliver called me, still trying to scold me. You knew she was pregnant. Couldn't you have cut her some slack? Being pregnant isn't a free pass to act like a menace. Chapter 6. As graduation approached, I moved out of the dorm and fully devoted myself to studying painting with my professor. I also took the opportunity to travel through several southern cities to visit renowned painters. When I returned, the class president called and said we should have a get-together before graduation. She paused and added, "You know, Alice will be there too." I wasn't surprised, after all. She was in the same department as me, but if I recalled correctly, in the previous life, this was around the time of her first miscarriage. The gathering was on the second floor of a quiet bar, with an open rooftop. The evening breeze was refreshing and relaxing. During the meal, Oliver was doting on the now visibly pregnant Alice. Alice set down her glass and came over. "Helen, come with me to the restroom, will you?" Alarm bells instantly went off in my head, and I took a large step back. "There are plenty of girls here. Why do you have to ask me?" "Helen," Oliver's tone dropped as he spoke. "Just because you and I are in a Cold War doesn't mean you should drag Alice into it. Is it so hard to just take her to the restroom? If I wasn't careful, it really might kill me." I thought back to my past life, where Oliver had used my father's life to threaten me, making me work exhausting shifts for over 10 hours a day while forcing me to sleep next to Alice's grave. What was Oliver's expression when I died of heart failure and overwork? Probably laughing with glee, cursing me to never find peace in the afterlife. I remained firmly seated, unmoved. Alice's expression soured as she wiped her eyes and went to the bathroom alone. Just then, Roma, who hadn't shown up in a while, stood up and poured a drink for Oliver. "Oliver, what I did before was terribly wrong, but I'm begging you, please stop targeting my parents. They're just farmers. My mother has schizophrenia. She can't take the stress." Roma looked worn down, her voice choked with emotion. She was on the verge of a breakdown. Oliver casually lifted his wine glass and took a sip. "Oh, and what's that got to do with me? You made Alice upset, that's the price." Roma gritted her teeth. "I've handwritten apology letters to her for a month straight. What more do you want? You even hired local thugs to harass us." Oliver looked momentarily surprised. "I only told them to cause a little trouble in the orchard. That's all." That was already highly illegal. I stared at him, speechless. Roma's family orchard was their only livelihood. Sending people to stir up trouble could wipe out their income for the entire year. And yet Oliver thought the punishment was light. A sudden gust of wind swept across the rooftop. Roma stumbled forward, and Oliver reflexively caught her. Just then, Alice returned from the restroom and saw the scene. Her eyes instantly blazed with fury. She rushed up and yanked at Roma's hair. "You dare come here and seduce my man? I've been far too kind to you." None of the other classmates dared step in, because when Alice lost control, she was dangerous. Whenever something upset her, Oliver would take it out on others. "Calm down, Alice. It's just a misunderstanding." Amid the chaos, the silver railing behind them shook violently. With a loud clang, Alice and Oliver both fell from the second floor. The class president rushed over in panic. "Oh my God. Call 911. Call 911. I looked down and saw a pool of blood blooming beneath Alice, illuminated by the soft orange lights of the night like a blood-colored flower in full bloom. Alice had miscarried. I later heard from the class president that when Alice woke up, she screamed and clawed at Oliver's throat. "If it weren't for you and that bitch, my baby would still be alive. You said you'd take care of me for the rest of my life. Was that all a lie? You're just like the bastard who abandoned me." Oliver stayed by Alice's side day and night, without a word of protest. In my previous life, Oliver once told me that the reason he spoiled Alice so unconditionally was because she had saved his life. Back in elementary school, he had sneaked out one night to look for a puppy and nearly froze to death in the snow. It was Alice who carried him home. Since then, he had promised to treat that little girl well for the rest of his life. But what he didn't know was that the person who had actually walked through the snow for half an hour to bring him back was me. After the fall, Oliver fractured his right hand and had to wear a cast. Even so, he went to the hospital every day to take care of Alice. At first, he still felt guilty, believing he bore some responsibility for the accident. After all, he also felt that Alice had turned extreme only because of past traumas, losing her family at a young age and being played by a scumbag. He even posted on social media, "I'll use all my love and sincerity to bring you back from the darkness, just like you once carried me home." But what Oliver didn't know was that soon, a crisis would hit his own family. When I was having dinner at home, my dad casually said, "Oliver's company is in trouble. Some of their core executives got poached, and their production chain is about to break. They're scrambling for funding now." Of course I knew that, after all, I played a role in making that happen. Chapter 7. One day, my cousin's family was out, so I took my little nephew to the hospital for a dental checkup. As luck would have it, we ran into some familiar faces by the fountain. Alice sat in a wheelchair, looking pale and vacant. Oliver leaned down to offer her a thermos cup, but whatever he said made Alice smack it out of his hands. Hot water splashed on Oliver's face, making him flinch and growl. "What the hell do you want from me? You yelled at me. You actually dared to yell at me. Isn't that proof you don't love me anymore?" Alice sobbed. "Just leave. I don't want a man who doesn't love me. Let me die alone." My 4-year-old nephew tilted his head and asked me sweetly, "Auntie, are those two crazy? Should we buy them something to eat? Our teacher said we should show kindness even to crazy people." Oliver heard this and snapped out of his rage, stunned as he stared at me. Only then did I realize he looked haggard. With messy bangs in his eyes and sunken cheeks, he looked sickly. When Alice saw my nephew in my arms, she trembled and pointed at me. "Why are you holding a child? Are you here to laugh at me? You're so cruel." "Helen, if you hadn't come to that party, I wouldn't have gone either, and none of this would have happened." I was speechless. Some people are so unreasonable. They'll blame you even if you were 10,000 miles away. "I'm not your mom. Why should I follow you everywhere?" "Helen, that's enough." Oliver cut in again. He was always silencing me. I shrugged. "If you've got time to argue with me, maybe go register her for a psych consult." My nephew clapped. "Auntie is awesome." I carried him away, leaving the pair behind, still fighting. My 4 years of university came to an end. As I carried my luggage downstairs, I bumped into Roma dragging her suitcase too. She nodded at me and hurried past, but suddenly turned back. "That night, you knew I tampered with the railing, didn't you? Why didn't you expose me?" I shook my head. "I don't know what you're talking about. I had no intention of getting involved in whatever had happened between her and Alice. On the contrary, the deeper her revenge on those two, the more entertained I was." Just as I turned around, a large hand suddenly reached out and shoved me against the wall. "Oliver, what the hell is wrong with you? Alice has been missing for days. Does it have anything to do with you?" He stared at me intently, his right hand slowly creeping toward my neck. "She used to disappear all the time." "What? Now if she loses a strand of hair, I have to be interrogated?" "I clearly saw you with that Roma girl earlier. She and Alice have beef. Don't tell me you didn't egg her on." "Helen, you're just jealous that Alice won my heart. That's why you're putting all this hatred on her." I looked at him coldly and tapped my finger to his forehead. "Oliver, how are your bones doing lately?" He clamped his lips shut and swallowed hard, clearly remembering what it was like to be tossed around by me before. "Unless you show me your phone right now, I won't believe you didn't do something shady to Alice." I let out a dry laugh. "And who the hell do you think you are, demanding to look at my phone?" He smirked like he'd caught me. "See? You're guilty." He tried to take advantage of a moment when I turned to snatch my phone from my pocket. In the scuffle, he shoved me into a small studio nearby. I glanced at the deep scowl on his face and suddenly thought of something funny. "Oliver, you say Alice has been missing for days, yet you're not out looking for her. You're here, going crazy at me. Doesn't sound like you care that much." Ever since I saw the two of them arguing at the hospital, I could tell Oliver looked at Alice with less tenderness and more irritation every day. No matter how sweet a relationship starts out, repeated drama and manipulation will wear it thin. Caught off guard by my words, Oliver lit a cigarette. Frustrated, I immediately snapped, "This is an art studio. Take that outside." He actually looked amused. "It's been a while since you scolded me like that. Kinda miss it." He needed a brain scan ASAP. Just then, my phone rang. It was a junior from the studio. "Senior, I'm ready and waiting. Come boss me around." He was my regular life drawing model. "I'll be there soon," I replied. Don't you dare leave. Oliver had been standing too close and overheard that teasing comment. What's your relationship with that guy? Since when are you hooking up with him? I shoved past him. If you don't know how to shut up, don't speak. He blocked the door again, insisting I come with him to the police station to wait for news about Alice. I elbowed him hard, ready to cuss him out, when suddenly, the studio filled with smoke. It was the cigarette he tossed earlier. It had ignited a stack of drawings. It was an accident, he shouted, panicked, fumbling for his phone. As smoke filled the room, I fought through the burning sting in my eyes and nose to rescue as many of the stacked sketches as I could. Luckily, other students were still in the building, and with their help, we managed to extinguish the flames quickly. Both Oliver and I were written up, but he had the added honor of being publicly reprimanded school-wide, whether in this life or the last. Nothing good ever comes from being around him. Well, I said coldly, dialing 911. I guess now we really are going to the police. Chapter 8. Perhaps it was fate. Among the many sketches in the studio, the only two that burned included the painting I created long ago titled Memories in the Snow. At the police station, Oliver trembled upon seeing the half-burned painting. In the white, snowy landscape, a ponytailed girl carried an unconscious boy on her back, followed by a limping black puppy. Oliver's eyes turned frighteningly red. Hoarsely, he asked me, "Helen, did you paint this? Was it really you who carried me home back then?" I remained silent. He tightly gripped the painting, his expression filled with nostalgia and regret. Soon after, my father and Oliver's parents arrived. It was late, and heavy rain poured outside, splashing onto the ground like golden butterflies flapping their wings. Seeing her son in such a daze, Oliver's mother raised her umbrella, aiming to hit me. "Such a trivial matter and you dragged us to the police station? You clearly want trouble for our family. No wonder you turned out this way without a mother to teach you any manners. Watch your mouth. Touch my daughter and you'll regret it." My father stepped in front of me, immediately causing Oliver's parents to hesitate. "Helen, it's just a few worthless paintings. If you need, I'll buy you 100. But no, you couldn't have Oliver. So you decided to ruin him instead." My father laughed mockingly. "Who would want a son like yours? Desperate to call anyone dad?" Oliver's parents, already resentful because my dad refused to lend them money before, seized this chance to lash out. The police loudly intervened, finally silencing them. Oliver's mother grabbed her son's hand desperately. "Oliver, tell Mom that what this little tramp Helen said isn't true. You haven't been fooling around." "Enough, Mom." Oliver covered his face with his hands, speaking in a muffled voice. "You shouldn't speak about Helen that way." I raised my eyebrow. What was he playing at? Oliver was asked to compensate for my damaged artwork, but his mother fiercely resisted, claiming her son was innocent. During their scuffle, a small bag of white powder fell from Oliver's pocket. A heavy silence fell upon the room as several officers' faces hardened instantly. They picked up the powder to test it, temporarily detaining Oliver, who was visibly stunned. Shielding me, my dad sneered. "You didn't leave earlier. And now your son can't leave either." The night had been exhausting, like when I was a child. My father patted my shoulder reassuringly, telling me to focus on my art and that he would handle everything. A few days later, just as I received an interview invitation from a prestigious art academy abroad, I heard that Alice had returned. Moreover, she was pregnant again, still with her mixed-race boyfriend. However, her boyfriend had been arrested abroad for breaking the law. Her imagined love once again shattered. Alice returned seeking Oliver, but Oliver was still in custody. Although his blood tests showed nothing suspicious, the origin of the illegal substance found in his pocket remained unclear. Eventually, Alice, heavily pregnant, testified, explaining Oliver had been framed at a party she invited him to. Only after thorough investigation was Oliver released. On that day, my father personally drove me to an art conference in the city. Passing by the city police station, we got stuck in traffic and witnessed Oliver's mother furiously grabbing Alice's hair, screaming that Alice had ruined her son. Despite her pregnancy, Alice possessed surprising strength and swiftly pinned Oliver's mother to the ground. With cold eyes, Alice declared, "Oliver killed my first child. He owes me this." Chapter 9. Oliver was tangled up with Alice and, in pain, cut ties with his family temporarily to accompany her during her pregnancy. I uploaded a compilation of their videos online with the caption, "If this isn't the pinnacle of true love, I don't know what is." But knowing Alice's overly sensitive and paranoid nature, I also hired a small group of ghost commenters to subtly suggest in the comment section, "Marriage is best between equals. Otherwise, problems will pile up." When Alice live streamed their lovey-dovey daily life, viewers began noticing Oliver's increasingly disheveled appearance and realized his mental defenses were crumbling. That day, I shared a newly awarded painting online. Oliver was the first to like it. That evening, during Alice's live stream, she tried to get Oliver to act affectionately toward her on camera. Oliver didn't cooperate, and with onlookers constantly making snarky remarks, Alice lost control and smashed a nearby wine bottle on Oliver's left cheek, watching the two of them tear each other apart like rabid dogs, stabbing at each other's emotional weak spots. I happily finished another half bowl of rice. A few days later, Oliver's struggling, hollowed-out family business held a family banquet. I showed up in full glam, gifting a premium painting with my current achievements and follower count. I was showered with praise. Meanwhile, Alice, cast to the sidelines, stared at me with bitter resentment in her eyes. She came this time to flaunt her deep, undying love with Oliver, love that had supposedly overcome every obstacle. But now, Oliver's company was undeniably bankrupt. Aside from Oliver treating her like treasure, no one else gave her the time of day. Oliver's parents started forcing him to meet wealthy women for arranged dates. Let's call it what it is. They wanted him to become a kept husband. At least that way, he might barely maintain a higher quality of life. Seeing the situation, Alice clung tightly to Oliver's waist, her tone sounding pitiful but laced with threat. "Oliver, you're all I have. If you give up on me too, I don't know what I might do." Oliver closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were filled with indifference. "I won't leave you. I'll stay with you till the very end of my life." Alice smirked in my direction and slowly enunciated every word. "If you break your promise, may your entire family suffer." Oliver's mother collapsed on the spot, trembling violently. I went live, streaming this heartfelt moment in full. With the entire internet watching, Oliver had no way out. He was now stuck in a life-or-death bond with Alice. He resigned himself to fate and began sending out resumes. But because of his prior run-in with the police, his record was tainted, and no decent company wanted to hire him. Eventually, Oliver and Alice got their marriage certificate. A few months later, Alice gave birth to a son, and Oliver became a first-time father. The harsh truth? His measly monthly salary of a couple thousand wasn't enough to support Alice and the child. One day, Oliver's mom knocked on my door, grabbing my wrist in desperation, begging me to win back her son. "That little leech Alice is sucking the life out of him. She doesn't deserve to be part of our family." Tears welled up in her eyes. "She doesn't earn a penny, spends thousands a month on clothes, and my son drives at night just to keep up with her spending." I smiled. "Auntie, your son made that choice. He has no one to blame but himself." Before leaving the country, I held my first solo art exhibition. While chatting with a few art-loving gentlemen, I saw Oliver walking over, laughing awkwardly. Only a few months had passed, but he looked like he had aged 10 years. His face was covered in scruff, and a bruise lingered on the corner of his mouth. He forced a gentle smile, but the skin around his lips twitched slightly. "Helen, the exhibition is amazing. I really like it," I replied coolly. "Thanks." His tone dropped. "It's just a pity, it's missing your piece, Memory in Snow. That painting being burned was a good thing. It's the one I regret the most. I should be thanking you for that." Oliver jerked his head up, stunned, staring at me. After a pause, he rasped, "Are you leaving the country?" "None of your business, Helen." On the day Alice gave birth, I had a nightmare. In it, our families were joined by marriage, but I treated you horribly. I projected all of Alice's past suffering onto you. I stared at his overflowing tears, my jaw clenched. "Done with your performance? Get out. Don't disturb others trying to enjoy the art." "Helen, that dream wasn't real, right? I didn't scheme against your family, didn't use your father's life to force you to your knees, didn't make you guard a grave. How did it end up like this?" Oliver laughed and cried at the same time. shaking his head with a twisted expression. We grew up together. We were supposed to have a happy ending. Today I finally see it clearly. I don't actually love Alice. I just enjoyed how much she relied on me, heart and soul, and I couldn't let go of the time and energy I had already invested in her. Helen, the one I truly care about is you. I raised my voice and cut him off. Security, please call an ambulance for this gentleman. As he was dragged out, Oliver kept turning back to look at me, begging me not to forget him. I was so disgusted I nearly lost control of my expression. More than half a year after I went abroad, my dad casually mentioned during a chat that Alice was gone, and Oliver had fallen into depression. Alice had remained hypersensitive after giving birth. The slightest displeasure would send her into a fit of rage against Oliver. She had a love-hate relationship with her own child, and drowned herself in alcohol and nicotine every day. While singing at a bar, she ran into Roma, the former broke scholarship girl, who was now a well-known film star. Roma made Alice kneel in front of everyone, pour her a drink, and sing 3 songs. Alice lost it and nearly strangled Roma on the spot. The incident triggered a massive wave of online hate. With nowhere to vent, Alice turned all her emotions into endless fights with Oliver. Until one night, Oliver finally snapped. If I had known you were just pretending all along, I'd never have chosen a lunatic like you and given up on Helen. That night, Alice turned on the gas. Of the 3 people in the house, only Oliver was rescued, barely, but his internal organs were severely damaged. On top of his constant hard labor over the years, his body was completely worn out. He was now bedridden, living on government assistance. After hearing all this, I simply replied flatly, "Got it. In this life, everyone makes their own choices. Everyone walks their own path. Some people burn themselves out, doing everything they can just to prove they have love. But not me. I will never torture myself for the sake of so-called romance. I want to treasure the second chance at life and carve out a brilliant, flower-filled path using my paintbrush."